Wherever it is that you're tuned in around the region, the country, and the world, thank you so much for being here with us as we have this conversation. And we're getting into it this Friday. It's the final day in the week. And it's the day after the budget was read.
Yes.
And there are many things that were said. There are many people who are saying, well, no, this not too bad because it comes into play for us. Others are saying, well, it looks like it's going to be a tough year ahead. Mm-hmm. Well, we'll have to see what happens because certain things will still be debated. And the finance bill, of course, come into play. And of course, with the debate continuing, will it then become, the Finance Act the way it is, or will that change in any way, shape or form? So these are the conversations that we're going to be having this hour. And we're going to get into it today proper and look into the details of what then happens next. And to help us out in that conversation, already in the hot seat this morning is the the Chief Executive Officer of the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, Tobias Alando, is with us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm very good.
Yes.
Thanks for having me today.
Karibu Sana, thank you for joining us in the Situation Room today.
Yes.
It's a day after Budget Day. It's like Christmas and then Boxing Day. And then Boxing Day when everybody opens up the presents. Mm-hmm. But the question is, are we going to open up presents that everybody wants to have, or is it something you're going to want to stuff back in the box and toss it out the window? Mm-hmm. Those are conversations that we'll have today as we get into it. As you know, Dennis goes around the African continent every week. He comes back from a different country with their proverbs. We'd love to get your interpretation today.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Today we are in Guinea. Very beautiful country. Capital is, you said what? Conakry. And one thing that is known about Guinea is the fact that they are the largest producers of bauxite, which is used in the production of aluminium, which now is turning out to be one of the most expensive or important metals. Because you think about phones, think about vehicles, and it lives there. Now, if you go to the States today, assuming you get your visa, right, they call it aluminum. But if you go to Brits, they call it aluminium. So depending on where it is you are. But let's go to the proverb. The God says, what belongs to the sheep does not involve me until the butcher arrives. How would you interpret it?
The God says what belongs to the sheep
does not involve me.
Yes.
Until the butcher arrives.
Typically means you're all the same in the eyes of someone who has an interest in you.
Yeah.
So they all meet ultimately. And the butcher will definitely slaughter both of them. Yes, irrespective of which one is a sheep, which one is a goat.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if the sheep was trying to run away, perhaps come up with a strategy to run together.
To escape, yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well said.
Yeah. Indeed. All right, Tobias, it's a day after Budget Day.
Correct.
For a lot of the numbers, generally speaking, people were, whether involved in the sector or got a little bit of information out of the media, you kind of knew where some of this money was going and maybe where some of it was going to come from. And then how it's going to be spent, you kind of had an idea. Maybe on the expenditure part is a totally different question. But then with the reading of the budget, then it became very clear what those were.
Yeah.
And we'll get into some of the details of all of this. But coming from the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, but as well as the economy in general, where we know that in order for an economy to grow, that there's certain things that you must do. It's not a question of can we get away with. No. You must do them if you want the economy to grow. If you're not doing those things, don't expect the growth of the economy. Now, looking into those and looking into what the Cabinet Secretary wasn't able to deliver yesterday, do we see, or what do we see, and how is this welcomed?
So it's a mixed feeling in terms of the budget, but overall you look at what I call the microeconomics. And for the last couple of years, we've had a stable interest rate, which is very crucial at 129 to the US dollar. And then you also look at the inflation rate, which is at 4.4. And lastly, you look at forex reserves, which Kenya has about 13.7 billion USD We have our investors or members operating in other countries where you are queued to import raw materials because of inability accessing dollars. So that stability is really important. And we've seen that in the past couple of years. The question is, as we move to the next couple of years or the next year based on this budget, 4 trillion budget, are we going to have similar stability of the microeconomics? We have a budget deficit of over 1 trillion for the first time. How are we going to fill in the gap?
Yeah.
And that's a major question. Of course, there is a conversation in terms of look into private sector investment to fill in that gap, but private sector will require to be assured of one is stability of the economy for anyone to put in that money to fit into the deficit. So there are a couple of questions that we definitely have. And if those questions can be answered, then I can confidently lift my thumb and say, this is good or not.
Why would those questions not have been answered? Because he did give reasons. He talked about the 1.1 trillion shilling budget deficit.
Yes.
He says it was says that he was cautious not to impose any or many punitive taxes. So perhaps we're not going to come back to Kenyans and say, give us that money because, okay, we don't want people to go to the streets. But then he did keep doling out goodies. Can you say we have a deficit here and it's going to be difficult, and on this side we also say, okay, but we're going to hire more teachers, they're not going to be permanent and pensionable yet. Dennis tells us not till January. Going to give 42 billion shillings to rural folk. Can you do two of those things in the same space?
That's why that's why I'm saying it is something to watch and see, because a deficit of 1 trillion is not a little amount of money. And even without looking at the deficit, already the planned collection, you're not assured. If you look at last year's, we had a shortfall of almost, we planned to collect about 3.5 trillion. We collected 3.2. So we already had a shortfall in terms of the revenue collection without even the budgeted deficit. So this year, you look at it and you're like, okay, are we going to collect what we plan to collect, first of all? If we are not able to collect what we plan to collect, how are we going to fit that deficit? That's why in the ministries they have said they're going to have zero-based budget. What does zero-based budget means? Means Treasury is not going to fund some of the ministry, department and agencies. They are going to raise their revenue. And when they raise their revenue, we will have cases where we have had before where agencies are raising levies. And who is going to pay those levies? The businesses. It means we are not taxing you on the other side, but we are going to tax you on these levies, fees, and charges, which, from where we sit, raises the cost of doing business for the manufacturing sector.
Tobias, when you look at the budget, already when it comes to raising revenue and the projections that have been put there, there is a high possibility that what has been stated as what we might not get there. So already we're getting in with the deficit of 1.1 trillion. But then again, if we do not meet the target, there is the second deficit, which will top up on the 1.1 trillion. But that notwithstanding, again, we look at the overall cost of doing business. There is unemployment that we have at the moment, and we are not seeing anything that has been geared towards improving on manufacturing, which would then bridge the gap and ensure that we have the unemployed get employed. Because we're not seeing even investment in energy, to say that we have enough power to invite more investors into the country. So when you look at the budget and all these things not being factored in, what are the stopgap measures then, if any?
So I looked at the numbers, particularly last year's numbers in terms of jobs created. And my concern was, out of the jobs that were created last year, there were about 822,000 new jobs. But out of these 822,000 new jobs, most of them were in the informal sector.
Okay.
Meaning they are not in the tax bracket. So the burden of taxation still remains to the known employed people and tax and who pay taxes. These other informal guys, maybe they will pay other taxes in terms of consumption tax, but ultimately they are not in the tax bracket. And my question and worry is, how do we get them on board into the tax bracket so that the burden that typically is on the people we know that pay taxes can be relieved?
Yes.
And that is a question that we have. 87.2% of those new jobs are from the informal sector. And they are not in the tax bracket.
You know, and this has all been, many have touted to be an election budget. And we know what elections does to would-be investors, because everybody now, because they're getting into that political silly season, everybody wants to stay away, you know, because of what our elections have been before. Now, with that in mind and funding this budget, how realistic are we? How realistic is this budget factoring that we have elections?
It is tough to be in Mbadi's shoes, because you're not juggling a ball, you're juggling eggs. If you drop one, it cracks. And having a balance of the numbers is really crucial. So we are looking at a fiscal deficit of which is 5.2 of the GDP, which is really huge burden. And like I said, my major worry is when we push for a zero-based budget, then these taxes are going to be collected in another way that we don't know. So right now it may look grossy and nice, but until we see some regulations and until we see some changes, then we can confidently say, oh, we are not being taxed. Or we are going to be taxed. Because you remember, certain agencies are due to review their tariffs. Certain agency, and I'm quite sure that with this kind of budget and the deficits that we have, the tariffs are going to increase in one way or the other.
Okay. So this is an issue that continues to be one. That the things, interestingly enough, that folks cry about, because, I mean, look, we'll talk about that, because one of the things that media does, even when there's a budget that's being put out, is that you go to the people and you hear what it is that they have to say. When you take that number and you translate it for them and what it means, and they say, well, we don't feel it, the micro that you speak about. So John Mbadi also admitted that he knew that there was a burden on, they know that there's a burden on people. One of the only ways to sort out that burden, wherever sector you look at it, whether it's in education, whether it's in health, whether it's in services, is to make sure that the economy is growing. One of the only surefire ways to grow the economy is to increase your manufacturing index. So that you can sell for surplus and profit to then put back into the country, right?
Yes.
So if there is an acknowledgement of that gap, why wouldn't there be a subsequent action to ensure that that solution then is achieved so that you can sort out these pain points? Why wouldn't that happen?
So we have seen in the budget a couple of proposals geared towards protecting the manufacturing sector.
Yes, which we applaud, actually. We mentioned that.
Yes, which we applaud. And I'll just come back to it later. But I'm looking at, because you look at the previous numbers and then do a comparison with this year's. So if you look at the output in terms of the growth of the manufacturing sector among the key sectors that drive the economy grew by 2%. 2%.
It's nothing.
It's nothing, very little. The agri sector grew by 3.1%. Service sector 5%. Construction 6.8%. Mining and quarry 14.9%. To me, this figure should be the other way around.
Yeah.
Manufacturing sector needs to grow further than what it is growing. If you look at the biggest economies in the world, they're driven by the manufacturing sector. Any economy that, look at the US, look at Asia, all these big economies, their key drivers is manufacturing. Our GDP contribution has continually been dropping. Previous year it was 4.4. It drops last year to 4.1. The last time we had a double-digit growth of about 12.9 or 11% was in 2013. What are we doing to make that change in terms of growth of the manufacturing sector?
And for purposes of clarification,
Yes.
Tobias, when we say manufacturing, because we often think manufacturing is just heavy-duty vehicles. Manufacturing is across board, is it not?
It is
From food to
Yeah.
packaging to shoes to clothes. Anything that can be made is manufacturing.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. So manufacturing is cross-border and it has potential.
Yeah.
Okay. And the ambitious plan we had, if all factors remained the same, it was the manufacturing sector was going to contribute to 1 million jobs. Currently, we contribute to about 360 million jobs. 360,000 jobs. And the proposal was, if factors remain the same, we'll move from 360,000 to around 1 million jobs. Our contribution to the GDP in terms of revenue is about 350 billion Kenyan shillings. And the ambitious plan is to move 350 billion to 1 trillion. So you already see, and then move from where we are at 7% GDP contribution to around 20% GDP contribution.
Okay.
But the other factors that we said, okay, for us to move here, we need one, adherence to the national tax policy, because anyone investing in this country requires predictability. Predictability of the tax base, which we have not seen. The national tax policy was passed, and adherence to this national tax policy is still the question. Number two, the cost of electricity. The cost of electricity in Kenya is still very expensive. We signed into some PPAs agreement, power purchase agreement, that has tied us to a specific cost. Unless and until we review these PPAs, we are going to still get stuck into this cost. 70% more expensive. Uganda is cheaper. Tanzania is cheaper. Yes, we may have stable energy, but the cost of energy in Africa, we are still more expensive. The other thing, of course, which we have seen an improvement in terms of infrastructure, which is good, but the other thing that is key for the manufacturing sector that inhibits the growth of the sector is the taxation of raw materials. A couple of raw materials we use as input are still being taxed. And in a budget proposal that we submitted, I've seen a few review on that, and I'm hoping if we read in between the lines, then it will be as what we had proposed. But taxation of raw material has been key. Now remember, the regional counterparts are also growing.
Yes,
Tanzania is growing. They're attracting manufacturing. So our market share that we've had in terms of our export to Uganda, export to Tanzania, is reducing because they are also producing what we were exporting to them.
Before. Okay.
So it's sort of a competitive environment that the government needs to relook into the manufacturing sector. A total shift in our strategy on how we look at the manufacturing sector would be the way to go.
And when you talk about a total shift or investing more into the manufacturing sector, one area that we can't afford not to talk about is the debt aspect of this budget, where we see that majority of the debt that would be taken, credit that would be taken by government will be local. You know, we're talking about close to 900 billion actually. And what that does is it crowds out investors, it crowds out the private sector, and even Oranchi in accessing credit because of the risk factor that is there. So then, how does that make it difficult even for manufacturing locally to expand? Because there is no credit. Credit is very expensive for anyone who wants it because the appetite isn't given government.
Yes. That's an interesting question because you look at the private capital that is needed. So someone says, instead of investing in the manufacturing sector, which I'm not guaranteed in terms of return, there's a lot of unpredictability, why don't I invest in the government bonds? Why don't I invest in government bonds? I'm guaranteed of return. So we are diverting in investment into sectors that would easily spark growth. So there needs to be a balance. I'm not saying people do not need to invest in the government bonds and all that because they're guaranteed return. But there's need to be a balance if we are looking at sectors that easily would spark the economy and drive certain investment. Okay, we've seen investment coming in, but it's not local investment.
Yes.
Rarely do you see Kenyans and say, let's invest in the manufacturing sector. And that's a conversation that we need to say to change and ask our own people to invest in the manufacturing sector, feed our own people instead of people coming, which is good. People need to come from other countries and invest. But if we own the manufacturing sector, it has been put at the back end by even our own people.
Yes.
In terms of the manufacturing sector. So it's people shying off in this investment because there are other lucrative ways to make money. Manufacturing requires patience, and the revenue generated return of investment is long term. It's only if you're patient, Dennis, you can definitely invest in the manufacturing sector.
The thing that again puzzles me is that Treasury is not in want of folks who understand these indicators and these trends. Treasury has economists, statisticians, even mathematicians, geniuses who understand the curve, actuarists who understand the curve of economics, who understand that it's formulaic. If you want this to happen, this is what you must do. I mean, we figured it out here in 30 minutes. Why wouldn't you then apply the formula for the thing to work? Because what we are doing now is that perhaps some money is just, I mean, this is the budget, this is what it says. Perhaps some money is being put in places whereby, okay, let's just do it so that we can get down the hill, right? And then the monies that seem to be absolutely necessary to make sure that you can plug the holes. It's kind of like repeating my question, but why wouldn't you do that? Because we talk about the tax. All the tax hikes that you see is where they're going to get the money to fill this gap for what they want to do. It's not necessarily because they want to make the industry better or that they want to make it more robust. It's that we need some extra coin. So here is a new place where we can get some more taxes and levies so that we can now take that money and plug this hole. It's Peter, Paul. That's what's happening. It doesn't seem to be going forward. It's just playing from left to right. So is it that they give suggestions and then they're not listened to? Or what would happen in a situation whereby you see the problem, you see the solution, but these two are not getting married?
It's not that they don't listen or they don't talk to us. In fact, in terms of public participation, I would commend them. We've had one of the best conversations this year, but whether that translates into proposals that we made into the final document. That's the second questions that we have. But where they are, like I said, it's juggling an egg. So they are looking at manufacturing, for example, it's a long-term gain. And a long-term gain requires when you have a few coins to invest for an investment that will give you quick return,
right,
you will put at the backside the one that will take long. So they look at sectors or areas that would easily give them the revenue immediately.
Like this now, mobile phone, tax hike,
exactly. You look at the numbers, how many people are having phones.
Okay.
Yeah. That is easy to collect. That is easy to get.
So the rationale here is from this budget is that they've gone to the sector where there are multiple players.
Correct.
And there is a high population.
Correct.
Who can pay a little bit of something,
yes,
and then they can collect big money.
Very correct.
Aha.
Very correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
How sustainable is that?
Because everyone is using a mobile phone,
right?
So and I'm not looking at a change that may happen that people will stop using phone. So this is definitely an easier way to collect.
So you can then be assured.
You're assured
that with no creativity next year there will be yet another tax.
Will increase.
Okay.
Yeah?
Okay.
But you look at sectors like, for example, e-mobility. E-mobility. One of the fastest growing sectors, and I appreciate that they have done in terms of removal of input taxes towards a mobile phone assembly, towards e-mobility, because this is going to be a key driver, even with the cost of energy going up.
Yeah.
Everyone now is turning into electric vehicles and electric motorbikes, two-wheelers, and electric tuk-tuks, three-wheelers. But once again, we have many of these, I guarantee you there will be a tax. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's why also then there's an increase on fuel, petrol, because everybody's using it. So that's an easy place to go to raise the price and collect.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yes.
So, for manufacturing to make sense to Aseto as an investor, I must be guaranteed that as much as it is a long short gain where I have to wait, but I must at least see return on investment, right? But with where the country finds itself, where disposable income has gone down because of high taxation that you find, manufacturing or investors are saying, kidogo, Kenyans are not spending as expected. It does not make sense for me to set up business. It does not make sense for me to expand because I will have dead stock. So in terms of new levies, because there's no direct taxes, but there are new levies that have been hidden left, right, center, which has made Kenyans to just spend on what they need today, right?
Yes.
So with that then, and inflation as well that it keeps on growing, how easy or how difficult is it then to fund the budget? Because where Kenyans do not have disposable income to spend, then you do not have much more collections.
I think we're on record even joining the proposal that Kenyan Bankers Association had of reducing income tax to certain cadres. The current payee rates needs to be reviewed, because we did an assessment in terms of disposable income in December, actually last year. You look at December 2025, December 2024, in terms of how much a person is spending on certain common products, and you realize it reduced by around 25%. So if last year, because we know we measure our spending in December, so in 2024 spending was higher than 2025, and even in the previous year, because of this reduced disposable income, and it's through the taxes that came in, the housing levy that was there was the SHA charges that are there, and NSSF, so eating into your pay slips, and we had joined in the proposal that we need to reduce the income tax on payee, particularly on this lower cadre people, to allow them to have a high disposable income so that they can buy our goods.
Yeah.
So otherwise we will produce and then nobody will be able to consume what we produce ultimately.
Yet, despite that proposal, there was a promise that was given by the president that everybody who is around 30,000 shillings and below would not have pay. It would be removed.
Yes.
But yesterday, at the budget reading statement, that did not exist. It's not there. The cabinet secretary addressed himself saying that, it's because I had prepared this thing earlier. The president gave this statement just the other day, but we will include it. But one asked the question, if it does not exist in the budget, what exactly are you telling us?
So
what magic?
It can be, there can be amendments, or when they're discussing in Parliament, there can be amendments in the budget, and that, if that is done in terms of amendments, then that will be a great win for the citizen, especially the lower cadre category of people whose disposable income right now is strenuous. Yeah.
I have to ask a difficult question.
Yes.
Where's the honesty? Because during the public participation, it was your proposal, not even the president.
Correct.
So the president was pretty much coming with that proposal after the fact that you had met with the relevant committees and gave the proposal. That the document in Parliament yesterday did not have your proposal in it.
Yes.
Where's the honesty? As manufacturers, where's the honesty?
They have to be honest to us, because we are keen on listening on every promise that they make as a government. And these promises or these proposals that we make are not for self-gain. They are for the common mwananchi. So any proposal that touches on a common mwananchi, I think, should be taken seriously. And jokes aside, I mean, if indeed he had made the budget statement before that proposal had come in, then he needs to honor his word and say, this is what we're going to do about it.
Okay, so if we look at the trajectory that obviously we know, so come the 1st of July, we get into a new year. This budget kicks in. There's debates in Parliament that's still taking place, still an opportunity for people to, send in their views. But is there any convincing that needs to be done to say, okay, really, if this is the way you want things to go, this is what you must do? Or are we just looking at now, surface level conversations?
For me, okay, based on the proposals that we submit, we don't look at the surface level conversation. We look at data. And in this data, we look at the previous year's proposal, what impact has it had in the sector? And then we say, based on this, why don't you review? For example, there were taxes that were introduced on craft paper, one of the packaging material, and the proposal was, there is already an investor that is doing those packaging material, needs to be protected, which we support. And then a verification exercise was done previously, and it was found out that the investor is still not ready or is not producing the said packaging material. Then in that case, we need not to impose duty of import, because this packaging material is crucial for our flowers, it's crucial for our avocados, it's crucial generally for our export. And based on that data, then we make a decision.
Okay.
So it's not about feelings. It is not about I want, you don't want. It's about the data and the research. So as a country, we need to be making decisions based on data and research, not based on personal interests of particular people or particular grouping.
Tobias, as you say that, there was a national economic survey. There is a national economic survey that is done. The same Treasury, these folks that we talk about, are the ones that commission this survey.
Yes.
The indicators, the data that you talk about is put together in a report. This report is released to the public. So even before the budget comes into play, they know what the forecast is. They know what the indicators for a forward-facing economy are. They know what the pain points are. They put it in a report. One would imagine that data and information that you speak of, Tobias, is available to them. It should be the building blocks of the budget.
Correct.
So how can you they have the data.
Yes.
How can you then have the data and it's telling you one thing that should be the menu, but you decide to go left completely? Why would you do that? I really am stumped to understand. You have the information, you have the data, you have the indicators, you have the forecast, you have it all. Take it together, form a budget that makes sense with all of those things taken into consideration. But we don't. Why?
That's very unfortunate, and I'm not holding brief for the National Treasury.
Okay.
I'm just saying from the policy space what we feel should be done. If we are going to make decisions based on data, then the country will move in the right direction.
Okay.
But if we make decisions based on what certain sectors feel, but even us as the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, it's not about our feeling, it's about the data. So we present it, and it can be questioned and it can be verified. I would love the National Treasury and the government generally to say, we are objecting this because we've ran through this data and it doesn't make sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
But don't reject our proposal just based on interests or feelings.
Tobias,
Yeah.
we will talk about taxation, and there is what the national government proposes, but then again, we have the counties.
Yes.
All this manufacturing that you talk about, right, are also situated in different counties, where counties as well would come with their set of finance bills with their own revenue raising mechanisms, and that will equally go to these manufacturing sectors in those counties as well, leave alone the national government. And even when transporting goods from one point to the other, one county to the other, there is cess that is paid, which then are the levies that you're talking about that overall contribute to the cost of product on the shelf. Now, we've established that for manufacturing to grow, everything has to be looked at. But how then do we have conversations from both levels of government, national and county governments, to have an understanding that if we make it easier for manufacturing to grow, then we make more people get employed, deal with an employment question, and just make the economy do good for everybody? Are these conversations that we are having with these counties, and what are the response?
I think one of the pain points we've had is doing business at the subnational level, which is the county governments. The county governments are out to collect revenue.
Yes.
And they have imposed a lot of levies and fees and charges that are more or less duplication.
Yeah.
So you pay it at the national government, and then you pay it at the county level. They'll give it different names to generate revenues. And it has been a pain point in terms of even movement of goods from one county and to another. I have produced my goods here in Nairobi. I need to take it to my clients in Kajiado. Reaching Kajiado, I am asked to pay. Yet I'm sending goods to a distributor who has a license in Kajiado. I'm asked to pay a fee to enter Kajiado. Doesn't make sense in any country. Doesn't make sense at all. So it is not based on any reasonable fact, but it is based on we need to collect revenue, so you have to pay. So what this is doing is increasing the cost of doing business. So you'd say, I would rather not go to that market. But if you don't go to that market, will your people eat bread? For example, to use bread, I need to take bread to Kajiado. People in Kajiado need to eat bread. Why am I being charged? Yet I am coming from Kiambu. I've already paid the required license. So we push for what we call Uniform License Procedures Act. And this intent is to harmonize all the fees and charges within different counties to enable goods to move so that if I've paid licenses in Kiambu, I can move in any county without any charges. And it's still under the developing regulations, and we are pushing to have that done. But if I was to make a call in this country, I would even reduce the number of counties. If I was to make a call, that's me.
You're joining an interesting group of people who have also made the same sentiment, expressed the same sentiment, and quite publicly so. When we talk about the manufacturing sector, we want to come back here because insistence that this is probably the one that is going to save the economy, and that everybody recognizes that agriculture too. When we talk about the inputs, this is now where the rubber meets the road. That if you're going to have protectionist policies, there are two things that you must do. Number one, make the inputs more affordable.
Correct.
And then you must also make the imports more expensive.
Yes.
Now, when we look at things like the livestock sector, farmers are crying every day that things like cotton seed cake, sunflower seeds, those things are so expensive. It is difficult for them to make the meal that they need in order for these animals to feed and then grow to sizes where they can sell. And so why would it be difficult to reduce the amount, or rather reduce the taxes and or levies on these products? Is it something that, because every time we talk about this, we're told, well, we reduce the cost of fertilizer. Okay, fantastic. And we've applied subsidies. What more can be done to ensure that happens? Because I see a situation whereby you have people are farming, people are in poultry, people are in livestock, people are in seeds and veg and all kinds of things, but are not able to realize because the inputs are too expensive. This is all part of manufacturing.
Correct.
What would be needed to do?
What needs to be done is clear. Reduce taxation on inputs to grow the manufacturing sector in this country. And looking at this current budget, we've seen reduced taxation on various inputs for different sectors, for furniture, for leather, for pharmaceutical, and many other sectors that I've noted. This definitely will spur the growth of those sectors, because when I import my raw materials at a higher rate, then that means my final product that I produce will be very expensive. And remember, these products can also be sourced elsewhere internationally. So we need an element of duty protection in terms of imports that come in to compete with our local manufacturers. There are sensitive conversations that we also have, and where Treasury sits, there needs to be a balance. Because when you talk about promoting the textile and apparel sector in the country, and then on the other hand, there is the second-hand clothing.
Yes.
There needs to be a balance. Do we want to grow our local textile, or do we want to rely on imported clothing?
It's an escape, though, isn't it, Jade?
It's a catch-22, because one thing, we are looking at affordability. Do we want to make the local apparel and clothing affordable to match the imports?
Yeah, because let's be honest, you can buy a t-shirt for 100 shillings.
Correct.
Or 50.
Yes.
You can buy a t-shirt for 30 shillings.
Correct.
Is the local industry, textile industry, then going to be able to develop so much so that you can then offer to people who will buy a t-shirt for 30 shillings? Can you sell the same thing, or is that not what we're looking at?
It is a journey.
Okay.
But it starts somewhere.
Right.
Yeah. We can't just say, okay, now
sell your stuff at 30 shillings.
Sell your stuff, because now we can't make clothes.
Right.
Because we're exporting jobs.
Right.
So it is a balance. It is something that we need to balance. We balance imports of second-hand clothing, but also we try and grow the textile and apparel sector. So when it reaches a level where we can be able to produce clothes at the lowest affordable rate, then we totally reduce imports. But there's a required balance.
Tobias, because even when we just talk about the textile sector, I believe it's not just a conversation on, we'll tell farmers, please we've given you seeds, BT cotton seeds that will withstand climate change and everything. Please just keep on growing. It has to be a conversation where when you tell farmers to grow BT cotton that we need for textile industry, we must as well have conversation on setting up production facilities that will add value on that cotton for us to have fabric, where then the local textile industry, our fundis, can prepare all these beautiful clothes that we want to have within the market. So that at the end of the day, if we are importing 60 tons of mitumba, we can say for the year 2026 we are reducing that to 40, so that the balance comes from the local manufacturers, because we can't have conversations of growing cotton if we are again exporting cotton to China, to Turkey, and buying clothes from them. It is counterproductive.
I agree with you 100%. And that investors who wants to put in a ginnery to process this cotton needs to have an assurance from the same government that we are going to protect you in terms of imports. Otherwise, if imports are just allowed anyhow, then this guy who has put up an investment who requires many farmers to plant cotton, then will say, oh, no, this investment doesn't make sense.
Then why can't counties do that? Because look at every single county, there is something that every county has that can actually be an industrious manufacturing issue.
Yes.
I was in Kilifi and I saw women whose fingers had been burnt because of how they struggled to get the peels off of the cashew. And that's an industry that could thrive. Go to Mombasa, you're looking at coconut, you're looking at the oil, cashew nut, looking at the oils that the world is running after today. You look at honey from Kitui and Baringo, look at fish that could come out of Turkana. Everybody thinks it's just Kisumu. Pick a county, leave alone this non-creative way of making money by charging people cess to cross from Mombasa Road to Kiambu Road. I mean, for crying out loud. We talk about own source revenue. We talk about manufacturing, building up. Why can't counties be the ones to say, you know what we're going to do? Instead of all this business of shouting at us about recurrent expenditure, why don't you set up a ginnery? Make sure that the farmers in your county are actually planting cotton. Give them the concessions that they need. Get the thing done. Have a product then that is going to contribute to the text. I mean, to me, it just makes sense.
So it's a very good conversation, and I wish this kind of conversations would happen in the county assemblies, where the MCAs would raise this concern and say, why don't we have a local industry in our region? Yet we have all these raw materials. Because manufacturing growth definitely can easily happen at the county level. But we look for certain minor investment processes or things that would really not spur the economic growth in the country. We definitely need to open our minds and say, guys, whatever we are doing and the direction we are taking, particularly at the county levels, we blame the national government a lot on so many issues, but the rot and the problems and the challenges starts from the county level.
Is this therefore then a time where even in the production of the national budget, would it make sense if the counties as well plugged into that national budget? Because what we see is the national government would go around the cabinet secretary and they would come up with a policy statement, but at the periphery the counties as well are busy preparing theirs that is not in one way complementing the overall budget.
Because if you ask yourself, in the since we promulgated the constitution, how much money has gone into the counties?
5 trillion. Almost 5 trillion.
How much money has gone into the counties? What percentage of that money has just been going to salaries? And development is zero, nothing, it's minimal. So I think we need also now to start questioning the county. That money that goes there would have spurred investment. In fact, in my view, is to identify, like other countries are doing. China, if you look at China, if you look at India, we have regions who are very specialized. So you see industries set up in regions. Like, for example, in our country here, we have the blocks, the regional blocks. So you say in lower eastern region, let's invest in leather, for example, where all counties come together, put one leather pack. Not every county put their own leather pack. Yeah. Invest money in one leather pack so that economic effect has an impact on those counties. But here, every county wants to put their own small. We're not going anywhere.
And that is the conversation, because I remember when the LREB, Lake Region Economic Bloc, was set, that was the idea around it, that what we have the lake. Can we have a fish processing plant where we can and we can export? You know, you go to Mombasa, what do you have? You have the sea. What else do you have? You have crabs. The conversation around what is unique in your county, you know, and through that, every county then would have shares that would determine the returns that you have at the end of the day. But these are not conversations that we are having, and we are not pushing. If we did that, what would you say would be the contribution to the economy overall?
It will be huge. Manufacturing will just par in a twinkle of a few years. It will be huge impact if this county governments through the regional economic blocks sit together and say, let's do one investment and spur the economic block within this region. Put all those resources. Even service, for example. There are regions that are good in hospitals. The Midrift, Eldoret has a lot of hospitals. Then why don't we just set up one regional hospital in that area? Put all the money. Within the period of 5 years, you'll see the impact of that. It will create other jobs. But specifically for the manufacturing sector, if counties wake up, then definitely employment, everyone will not be running to Nairobi for employment, will be going to those counties to get employment. But we don't have that vision, unfortunately.
Well, we'll keep talking about it until somebody wakes up.
Yes.
It's necessary for us to do. What we've done this morning is look at the morning after of the budget with Tobias Alando, who is the Chief Executive of the Kenya Association of Manufacturers. The hope is that somebody grabs the vision, because these deficits, these things that we hear all the time, deficits, gaps, problems, borrow, debt, can actually be solved by looking inward. A very good morning to you, and thank you for being here in this conversation this morning.
Thank you very much.
It continues going.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.